Hello and Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to my channel. I am you. Imagine navigating an environment every single day that was designed with a fundamental unspoken assumption that your brain processes information, manages time, and handles stress exactly like everyone else's. Now imagine that if you raise your hand and say, "Hey, I don't, this system isn't working for me," you are handed a piece of paper, a label, and a few minutes of extra time on an exam and told the problem is solved. Now, data from the National Center for Education Statistics shows that up to 65% of neurodivergent students are not willing to disclose their disability to the in higher education to the accessibility office. Uh, Let that sink in. Nearly two-thirds of the this student population is navigating higher education completely under the institutional radar. Why? Because they know something universities are still refusing to admit. Traditional accommodation on demand models are fundamentally broken. And today we are going to talk about why standard extra time on tests is a lazy fix for digital education and what it actually takes to build an architecture that works. When a student enters higher education, the system relies entirely on a reactive model. It places the burden on the individual. You have to navigate bureaucratic paperwork, provide expensive clinical proof, and formally disclose your diagnosis just to get a baseline level of support. But for 65% of these students, that trade off isn't worth it. And their reasoning rests on two massive, well founded beliefs. Number one, stigma. The moment you formally disclose that you have a certain a specific learning disability, or you're a neurodivergent individual, the label is attached with you, and you are no longer just a student trying to learn. You are a case to be accommodated. The second reason is even more damning. Students don't register because they know standard accommodations will not be able to help them. Think about it. Higher education has treated accessibility like a legal compliance checklist. Can a student scan this document? Check. Did we get the student with ADHD extra time on their final exam? Check. But what happens during the other 15 months of the 15 weeks of the semester? Now, giving a student extra time on a test is a band-aid on a broken bone. It addresses the system of a rigid system, not the design of it. This is especially true in digital and online education. When digital learning management systems are built, they are designed around normative assumptions of how participation happens. They assume linear, focus, hyper organized architecture, hyper organized executive functioning, and an innate understanding of vague academic criteria. If an online interface triggers executive dysfunction before a student even opens an assignment because of cluttered layouts, confusing navigation, and rigid hidden deadlines, extra time on the exam at the end of the term changes absolutely nothing. In my research into digital pedagogy, I focus heavily on the architecture of digital feedback and assessment. Feedback is where learning actually happens. It's where a student learns to develop evaluative judgment. And as I told earlier in my videos, what is evaluative judgment? It is the capacity to look at their own work, interpret quality, and self-regulate. But traditional digital feedback is purely an input output transaction. A professor types a grade and some text into a box and the student reads it. For a mind that processes language differently, or a brain that experiences a massive dopamine drop from negative text-based criticism, that feedback isn't an educational tool, it's a barrier. So, what is the alternative? If accommodation on demand is failing the majority of students it claims to serve, what do? We shift from accommodation to architecture. Instead of building a rigid normative system and bolting accessibility features onto and afterthought, we build the system using Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, from the ground up. Imagine a digital feedback framework where a student doesn't just receive a flat wall of text. Imagine multimodal feedback where criteria are presented visually, where students can engage with alternative response formats, and where they are guided through iterative student-led inquiry. When you design a feedback system that allows a student to interact with criteria in a way that aligns with their cognitive processes rather than working against them, you don't need to force them into a disclosure trap. The system is inherently flexible enough to host them from day one. Now, the 65% statistics isn't a student problem, it's a design failure. When two-thirds of your neurodivergent population choose silence over your offered support, it means your support feels like a barrier in disguise. We need to stop treating neurodivergent students as a special case requiring a hall pass. We need to start from their experience and work outward. True inclusion isn't about being nice enough to let someone into a room built for someone else. It's about redesigning the room entirely. If you're a student navigating these systems right now, know that your struggles with rigid digital systems, architectures, aren't a reflection of your intelligence. They are a reflection of a design assumption that missed you. Let me know in the comment section, have you ever been chosen not to disclose a diagnosis because the accommodation just weren't worth the hassle? Let's talk about it. If you want to dive deeper into how we can design a more inclusive future for digital education, hit subscribe and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.